Welcome everyone to the Webdelics AMA. Today we're going to be discussing the beautiful, wonderful world of ayahuasca. And if it's your first time with our AMA, these are our Ask Me Anything series that happen once a month. And this is an opportunity for folks out there who are interested in these different psychedelic medicines to get some questions answered. So this is something I call formally informal. So basically it's two guys today talking to you about ayahuasca. And so we have some questions that have come in already. So we've got some of those preloaded. And then also if you're out there on LinkedIn or Instagram or YouTube, wherever you're coming in from, we're also accepting questions through the comments through those different platforms. So feel free to bring in questions, more questions. If there's comments on the topic we're talking about or the question we're discussing, feel free to bring those in also. And then a few other little housekeeping things. We've got a beautiful QR code up in the right-hand corner. That just takes you to the Webdelics website. And then also, we do recommend and would love you to sign up for our newsletter. So that's what you see the feed on the bottom there about our newsletter that goes out every week. And the topics on that are just always generally about psychedelics, which is what psychedelics is, or I was going to say what Webdelics is all about. And other housekeeping, those are the big two. But the big thing is, bring in the questions and we'll just keep answering questions as they come in. And then what I'm going to do is first introduce myself and then our guest Ti0. So myself, Steve Elfrink. I'm the subject matter expert at Webdelics. I also have my own private practice called Ti0, based in Southern Oregon, but serving the world. And I bring 47 years of experience working with different plant medicines, personal use, and facilitating other folks with these medicines. And my passion is, helping folks in education, assimilation, and dissemination, getting information out there, especially on this ancient wisdom that's entered our space, but a lot of interest right now, a lot of questions. And so we're here to just kind of separate the wheat from the chaff and give some people some inspiration, hope, and also some answers to when things sometimes go a little sideways. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today is Ti0 from down in beautiful Brazil. And here's the bio for Ti0. Ti0 is a skeptical mystic on the global mission to awaken humanity, focusing on guiding skeptics on the path to higher consciousness. His journey began with a life-changing ayahuasca retreat, followed by fully immersing himself in an 8-year apprenticeship. During this time, he worked as an ayahuasca retreat facilitator, training in shamanism, psychotherapy, and various spiritual systems. He has had over 600 ayahuasca journeys, as well as countless other experiences with higher states of consciousness through psychedelics and other methods. He has guided over 1,000 individuals through ayahuasca ceremonies, facilitating more than 5,000 unique experiences. Going through his own journey of healing, addictions, cynicism, and deep depression, he is now helping others find peace, joy, love, and sanity in this chaotic world. So welcome, Ti0, to the Webdelics AMA. There we go. Honored to have you today and taking the time to be with us. So if we could bring up our first question, we're just going to dive right in. Okay, beautiful question. I love this. Whoever sent this in, thank you. So Ti0, our first question from the audience it's a big one, and it's a great one to start with. It's actually perfect. What is the ayahuasca experience?
Steve, firstly, thank you for the wonderful introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I love the first question because it's something everyone attempts to explain after they've had it. Everyone wants to share about their ayahuasca experience. And after over a decade of working with ayahuasca, as you said, when I've seen 5,000 unique experiences from other people, have 600 of my own. And the one thing I can say is that there is no such thing as the ayahuasca experience. The most beautiful part about ayahuasca is that it's so unique every single time you go into it. It's almost never the same experience for any person. You can be the same person in the same setting, drinking ayahuasca 5 times, 50 times, 500 times, and every single time there's something new, there's something different, which is what I feel it makes it something very different from many other psychedelics, which tend to have patterns and similarities between experiences. Whereas ayahuasca, there's such a wide range of experiences, and each of them can be so unique that it's it's difficult to say that there's one thing that can you can say that this is part of the ayahuasca experience, and it's guaranteed that every single time you go, you're gonna have. So some of the common themes that emerge. Of course, you have visuals. It's psychedelic, so a lot of people experience visuals, but again, it's not a guarantee. For some people, they may not have a single visual experience, or they may go into one experience where it's a lot of visuals, and the next experience there's no visuals at all. You can have purging, which is a very common theme, but again, it's not guaranteed. Some people can be purging through the night. Some people have no purging at all, and there's everything in between. And there's so many different types of purging also. Some people will have a cosmic exploratory experience. Some people will have a deep healing journey, facing their traumas. Some people will be having nothing at all and just getting frustrated. And sometimes there's that emotional experience where ayahuasca was frustrating you because that's what you experience in everyday life. So one of the terms that I like to associate with ayahuasca, which was part of my training, I've heard it again and again and again, was that ayahuasca is an amplifier. It amplifies who you are and especially amplifies the state that you're in. So if you are someone who's generally frustrated when things are not going your way, a very common experience that you can expect is that you will get frustrated because you're not getting what you want out of ayahuasca. One of the advices I give people when they're coming for the ayahuasca experience is you may not get what you want, but you will get what you need. And this is a line that's used a lot in the ayahuasca community because more often than not, people do get what they need, and quite often they are disappointed because they did not get what they wanted. But it does give them so much more than what they expect. I feel like this is my way to express what is the ayahuasca experience. You can't really put it into words. You can't really say that this is it. But there are common themes that you can expect, and each person just going to have a very unique experience each time they go in.
Okay, beautiful. And one thing I'd love just to kind of expand a little bit on the experience of what is, I mean, for a lot of folks, what is ayahuasca? Just, like a mushroom is a mushroom, peyote is peyote. Yeah. And
so ayahuasca is an Amazonian sacred plant brew. It's made by it's a tea that is made from two different plants. So one is a wine that is called Banistereopsis capi, or the ayahuasca wine, and the other is a shrub. It's the Psychotria velutis shrub, which is also called chacrona. And so the chacrona contains DMT, which gives the visionary experience, and the wine, the bark, has all the rest, which is the purging and all the bodily stuff and healing is associated with the bark. And when the two are combined into brew, you get both at the same time. The thing is that you can't have just the DMT by itself because the wine is an activator for it. But there are tribes and cultures where they have only the wine too because it's a very good purge and cleanse for the body. But ayahuasca, what it is commonly referred to, it is the tea that is made from these two plants. And that's about it. There are some places which can mix other things into it, but the traditional sacred brew is just these two plants, water and fire. That's about it.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks for going a little deeper into that, Ti0. So then just kind of recap. So basically ayahuasca, a brew that is made from those two different plants, served in a typically ceremonial container, and something that is drank. And so it's a liquid or a tea, as you called it. Okay, if we could have our next question, please. Okay, another good one. What does What does ayahuasca actually unlock, and what doesn't it? There are many transformational stories, but also stories of drama and destabilization. What is realistic to expect? So, you touched on a little bit of this, but as far as what is realistic to expect, where it's like, who knows on some levels. But if you want to address the what it unlocks, what it doesn't, and then the stories of drama and destabilization, if you could address those three mainly.
Yeah, I think what I'll start with is that it's something I've heard quite a lot, is that some people have these massive transformations, like completely life changing, and that was me in my first retreat. I went in, I had not really studied ayahuasca, and I was not looking for any spiritual experience or any healing. I was literally interested in getting high because I heard that it's the most powerful psychedelic. I had LSD just before that. It was amazing. So I thought if there's something even more powerful, that's what I want to experience. So like when I went into it, I was an atheist. I was addicted to a bunch of different substances, but I did not see it as addiction. I was actually enjoying whatever I was doing, and I had no interest in even quitting any of that. And so I came into this experience, looking to get high, and the ayahuasca had something completely different in store for me. So again, I did not get what I wanted, but I did get what I needed, and I actually had an overnight transformation. So I had 4 ceremonies in my first retreat, and the third ceremony. So up until the third ceremony, I was actually smoking cigarettes even during the retreat. And then that night, when I went into the experience, the next morning I came out and I had just quit everything. And I'd been smoking and doing different substances for over 9 years at that time. And I used to be smoking about 20 to 30 cigarettes a day on average. And I just quit overnight, and that was the end of it. And it's 11 years later, almost 12 years later, and I've not gone back to any of it. So that was a very radical, deep transformation. And I've seen a few other stories like that. And a lot of people don't have this kind of radical transformation. They're looking for it, they want it, they wish that they could have it, and then they just come and get something completely different. So what to expect? Yeah, I mean, you literally have the whole spectrum, right? Like your life can just change overnight completely, and you may just have some insights about what is going on within you, and then it's up to you to actually take those insights further through therapy, counseling, coaching, and your own spiritual work, your own inner work. So I would say, this actually is the theme of our AMA, is that what do you expect from the ayahuasca experience itself, and what to take after it. So I think what to experience from ayahuasca is it's really as much as possible to go into it with openness and see what the plant has in store for you. Because I feel that whatever expectations people have usually end up charging the experience with frustration. That's been my experience, that people just come with this laundry list of intention, and they want all these questions solved, and all these, they want answers, and they just want their life transformed. And when that happens, you actually end up blocking the experience that is waiting for you. And you end up spending a lot of time in frustration and disappointment. So if instead you can go into the experience open, like just expecting that some magic is waiting for you. I call it magic just because we don't still understand how the thing works. And you can't really explain these kinds of radical transformations, what happens. You can explain the chemical interactions, but there's a lot more to the experience. So that would be, I wish I could see the question again, and perhaps I can, because it was quite a big question.
Yeah, the other part was stories of drama and destabilization.
Yeah. So
so we have the transformation, and then this other side of
When it comes to drama and destabilization, like I said, the best term for ayahuasca is that it's an amplifier, and it amplifies who you are, everything about you, the beauty, the best parts about you, and also the dark side. It gets amplified. So if you are someone with a very strong ego, or you have a lot of unworthiness issues, or you have this need to prove yourself, or other kinds of, these kinds of patterns, or you have drama patterns. Like you always feel like a victim, or you always feel like the world is against you, or there's so many different drama patterns, right? So like if you have these within you, what ayahuasca is, it's a very strong mirror. So it will amplify all of this. It will show you if you are ready to see it. If you're ready to see yourself, it's great because you'll break through the drama pattern finally. You'll understand for the first time in your life, many times, you'll understand that this is what is going on, this is what I've been through. Especially if you have good support and facilitation during the experience and around the experience, people who have experience can help you to understand the patterns that are being amplified. But on the other hand, if you're not ready to see it, those drama patterns can just get amplified 1,000 times. So if you're feeling like a victim, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're unworthy, that can become 1,000 times more intense. And if you have the right support, you can break through it. And if not, it can be really overwhelming and tough, and it can be destabilizing too. And of course, there are more extreme ways it can destabilize you. So I don't know how deep we want to go into that, but at least for the general public, I would say that there are lots of shadows. We call it shadows. For whoever's familiar with some psychological concepts, it's your dark side. So a lot of shadows can get amplified and exposed. If you're ready to see them, it's the best thing ever because you have a breakthrough finally, and you can actually transform that. You can see why you have been stuck or why you've been sabotaging yourself. You can change that. If you're not ready for it, you can expect a rough ride even after the experience. Like sometimes it can last for a while. It doesn't just go away. Sometimes it can be weeks or months later that you're still experiencing the same pattern at a much higher level.
Okay, I'm curious with the destabilization. What do you recommend for people as far as like the integration support? Because I know we'll probably touch on integration at some point, but as far as someone needs in that destabilized place, what is the kind of protocol or how you best support those folks?
I think a, a, a therapist who has experience with psychedelics, or a coach or counselor, someone like a shaman, anyone that you trust who has experience with psychedelics and knows how to process that experience would be the first line of support. In my experience, it's like you go to talk to someone who has experience, because you go to a traditional therapist who doesn't have experience and may also have a negative bias against psychedelics, they can make it so much worse, because then they're coming up with their own stories about you may have gone crazy, and you've not gone crazy. It's just your dark side has been exposed, and you can just work through it. Or you've been destabilized in other ways. Like there are many other ways. So that's, I would say, like getting a trauma-informed therapist or a psychedelic, ideally a psychedelic and trauma-informed therapist or coach would be the first line of support. Somatic practices are very powerful. And what I mean by that is anything like body, because like I said, ayahuasca does activate a lot of stuff in the body. It can be a lot of purging and cleansing. And to solidify that, you need a lot of grounding, because ayahuasca is, while it's got these two components, one is very earthy and one is very cosmic. Like a lot of people get destabilized because they get pulled too deep into the cosmic or the irrational side of life. And, they kind of lose their familiarity with the normal reality. And what helps with that is grounding practice. Like anything that can help you to ground, spending time in nature, physical exercise, yoga, even just keeping your bare feet on the ground, which is something most people don't do. Like I went through a very long phase of feeling very disconnected from myself, from my body, from reality. And the thing that helped me most was actually to just walk barefoot and do some grounding practices while working on psychological part too. But that was tremendously helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, these I would these are the two things I would recommend without having any context about the person. This would be the general advice, and then of course I think like each person needs very specific counseling for whatever they're going.
Yeah, and I know this is, that what we just discussed around destabilization, even, the drama aspect. I mean, we could probably spend 2 hours just on that topic. So what's always, kind of a challenge with these AMAs are, some of these topics can go so deep. And for me, the bottom line is, we're complicated creatures, and what someone shows up to with any ceremony or any, psychedelic experience, there's the known and there can be the unknown. And also, the defense mechanisms, the fortress the person has built up in themselves to kind of survive in the world. And then all that can kind of get opened up. And it can open us up to, powerful spiritual realms, unity consciousness, spirit realms, just, these beautiful worlds. And it can also take us into, stuff we haven't dealt with, stuff that's been under a lid of dissociation, stuff that's been trapped. And that defense mechanisms that have been protecting all that can be, relaxed or broken through. And all of a sudden we can have all this material emerge. So it's, there's, with any of these medicines, there's two sides to it. There's the side of, spiritual breakthrough, epiphanies, transformations, and then there can be, some hard work that comes out of them. And I think what you said, Ti0, is just so important. If someone is destabilized, to get the support that they need, and finding, I want to reiterate, trauma informed and psychedelic informed. Not someone going to a psychiatrist and just being put on a boat ton of meds to kind of shut everything down is not, it could help in short term, but that person typically needs more, and I agree with you, more of a somatic approach, more grounding, more coming back to earth, back to body, and also, the ability to address whatever, started to emerge during whatever medicine we're working with. So again, we could,
and
2 hours on easily.
I know, and I will add a short point just before we jump into the next question, is that I've had my own experience. I've also worked with a lot of people who have gone through very destabilizing experiences, because like you said, you build this fortress and then it gets opened up. In some cases it gets shattered brutally, like it just disappears completely, and you feel very exposed and in front of the world. And if you have the right support, especially during the experience, you can change your life instantly. Like those are the kinds of, like, they can be very harsh and brutal experiences, but those are the experiences where your life can change in an instant also, if you're ready for that transformation. You have the right support. Like many of my most profound life-changing experiences, even the one where I quit all my addictive substance habits, that one was a very tough experience for me. It was extremely overwhelming, but the beauty of it was my life was changed literally overnight. So just because we are saying this, like, I don't want people to get afraid of it. It's just that the tough experiences can be the best experiences also.
Yes, 100%. Yes. And for folks just joining us, we're on the Webdelics AMA on Ayahuasca with Ti0 and Steve Elfrink here. And if you're just joined, also the QR code up in the corner is for the Webdelics website. And if you go to the website, please subscribe to our newsletter. Useful information coming out every week. Okay, so let's go to our next question. How does ayahuasca differ from psilocybin? So a lot of in the press right now about psilocybin, treatment-resistant depression, studies going on. There's all this is in the media right now, a lot of excitement around psilocybin and ayahuasca. So Ti0, what would you say is, how does ayahuasca differ from psilocybin?
Okay, so I'll give my take on it because I don't have experience with psilocybin in the clinical setting. I have experience with it in the more shamanic or natural setting. And of course, I have a lot more experience with ayahuasca. I would say, so see, there's a lot of benefit to using psychedelics for clinical treatment. Obviously, it's been studied and it's been approved because of all the success stories and benefits that have come from these studies. at the same time, there's so much more depth to it in the spiritual realm, which I feel that gets completely ignored in the clinical realm because the focus is on healing. And healing is one aspect of ayahuasca and psilocybin, but there's a whole world beyond that. And I feel like, especially with ayahuasca, like this is what I see as a big difference is that the that ayahuasca is a very powerful portal to the spiritual side of reality. Even psilocybin is, but I have found ayahuasca to be way more powerful when it comes to opening up the spiritual side. And of course, the actual experience is also very different because, as far as I know, like at least in my experience, psilocybin doesn't have as much of a purgative cleansing, like physically cleansing experience. Like you could have some of it, but ayahuasca is very intense when it comes to that. There's a lot of purging. If it is the experience meant for you, there's a lot of purging. You can be vomiting, you can have diarrhea, you can be sweating, you can be shaking, you can be doing all kinds of things. But all of that is basically stuck energy being released from the system, and that is why it's so powerful and transformative. That even without insights or anything, even if you don't have all of that, it's just cleansing your body of a lot of stuck emotions, stuck energies, and you come out of the experience and you just feel a lot lighter and a lot better. And you know, people may associate vomiting with alcohol and it feels terrible, but the experience I have and I've heard so many people is that is the best thing. It's like you feel so good after doing it because your system just feels like it's 100 times lighter. You just shed so many things which you do not even realize you are carrying, or which in other traditional ways of cleansing may take years. Like, one of the very common lines associated with psychedelics is like, or especially ayahuasca, it's like it's a decade of therapy in a night. Why is that? Because the intensity and the speed with which things can happen, because working at all the levels. So it's working at the spiritual, the physical, the emotional, the everything psychological. So as far as psilocybin, I feel like probably you have more experience and maybe you can share something about it.
Yeah, I think you did a great. I mean, that was beautiful what you shared. I mean, very very accurate. For me, like all these different medicines, whether it's LSD, ayahuasca, psilocybin, DMT, ibogaine, for me, they each have their own like ethos to them. They're kind of their own frequency and how they work. And just to hone in on psilocybin versus ayahuasca, I think you said it pretty very well. I mean, for me, like ayahuasca is just a more broad spectrum, more possibilities. Who knows where you're going to go in a good way. Um, but it's yeah, a little more far-ranging, deeper spiritual, deeper into spirit realms, into plant realms, into realms, many, many realms. And I think, psilocybin traditionally is a little more, I'd say a little more focused in general. It doesn't go as far out, and it can go far out. It can go into the cosmos, can go deep into, it can awaken the trauma also the same way. All these different medicines can do that. But I would just say psilocybin's a little, I don't, when I say a narrow bandwidth, I don't want to put any limitations on psilocybin that it has a narrow bandwidth, but just compared to ayahuasca, I would say it's just a little more narrow bandwidth, what it taps into. But I mean, and for me, they're both beautiful medicines. And I think they both have their own preparations, their own integrations that people need to be aware of. And I think with all this, do your research. Understand where you're at, what feels right to you, what resonates with you. So, I mean, from all this, and I probably say this on every AMA, listen to yourself. Where are you ready for? What feels right for you? And then what medicine feels right for you? Where's the resonance? And then let go of everything on some level too. And then, whoops, go ahead, Ti0.
Yeah, I would say that the setting does matter a lot. If you're doing it in a clinical setting under observation or with a therapist, or if you're doing it in a shamanic setting in the dark, you're just in your inner world, in the jungle. Like I always recommend drinking ayahuasca in its own habitat, which is the Amazon or the like. It's in the jungle. I live in the Atlantic rainforest, but it's the jungle. And when you're doing it in the jungle, it's such a world of a difference compared to doing it in a city or in a lab or under observation. It's just, there's no way to explain what the difference is. I've seen so many people who've had a city experience and they come and have the jungle experience. It's infinitely different and greater.
Yes. No, nice add on there. And let's bring up our next question, please. Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Divine intervention here. When is the right time in someone's journey? I would assume that by journey, they just mean their spiritual path, their healing path. What is the right time in someone's journey to consider ayahuasca?
Ah, what I've seen with a lot of people, there's this phrase that is used a lot. I was called to ayahuasca, and I've heard very skeptical people use this line. So you can be very skeptical and you can scoff at me saying this right now, but I have heard so many people use this line that when it's time to drink ayahuasca, suddenly it just comes into your life from all directions. Like a friend will start talking about it, you'll start seeing stuff about it online, you'll start maybe having a dream about it. You'll, like, somewhere or the other will just start showing up, and it starts showing up in many ways. And suddenly something inside you tells you, yeah, it's time. So that is the calling. That is when I would say is like the time to consider ayahuasca. But if you don't have the calling and you're still feeling inspired, something, like you do feel like you are ready for a big change in your life, you feel like you want a different perspective on life, you want to expand your life, you want to expand your consciousness, all of those are very powerful times to consider ayahuasca because of the potential it has. And maybe we can also answer the counter question, is when is it not a good time to consider drinking ayahuasca? And I would say is that if you are not stable, it is definitely not a good time to drink ayahuasca because, like I said, it's an amplifier and it just amplifies the destabilized state a lot more. That said, if you're doing it with someone who's experienced and they are informed about your state and they agree to it because they are ready to handle you and support you through that, it can still work. But yeah, you do have to take a lot of precaution if you are not feeling stable already. That would be my short answer. If you have anything to add on top of that.
Yeah, what I would add for me, a big one that's coming up, and doing my own personal deep dive on this and research and my exploration of capacity, psychobiological capacity. So I think there should be setting, and capacity. You kind of touched on it, Tio, but are you ready for a deep dive? Are you ready to possibly be blown open a little bit? Sorry for that expression, but just, are you ready for, do you have the personal container to hold the aftermath of what can happen from these medicines? So if you're in a very destabilized place and you're kind of shaky ground and I don't know what's going on in my life, and I heard this works and I should try it, I guess. But if you're in that kind of shaky place, not a good idea to dive into some of these bigger medicines. And that's where I think there needs to be more emphasis on psychedelic dosing, working with smaller doses of something like ketamine. And, let's get you stabilized. Let's get you grounded. Let's get you, if there's something emerging, right now, let's work with that, kind of prepare the body, prepare the psychobiological system, get it ready, then go into these deeper medicines. So just understanding where you're at.
I don't know if this question is going to come up later, but since you mentioned dosing, right, I feel like especially because the topic is the truth about ayahuasca retreat. I feel like it's a very important question that I know a lot of centers who will just have standard uniform doses for everyone. So like you have a group of 15, 20 people, everyone's just having the same dose. And some centers can give you the same dose, but they just give you a dose. And they haven't really, studied your history or don't know much about you, and they just give you a dose. And the dose is so important because it can be the difference between having a great experience, having no experience, or having a terrifying, overwhelming overdose experience. And one of the things I trained, like I learned during my training, was to learn how to study the person who's in front of you and using your experience and insight to find the right dose for them. Because some people are so sensitive, and some people are like rock. Like you need to give them 4 doses to break them, and then that same person, you just give them a standard dose and nothing happens to them, and they're like, "Well, ayahuasca doesn't do anything." And then you give a very sensitive person a standard dose, and it can be way too much for them. So I really agree with you that sometimes working with small doses is so much more powerful, because even for like you know, you find your right dose, you have a very powerful, great experience. But the same person take a smaller dose and can have so many more breakthroughs, because they are more not settled may not be the best word, but they're not in this grand experience. They're just in a more subtle experience. They're getting insights. They will see themselves more clearly. So like I said, there's such a wide range of experiences, and one of the big factors in that range of experiences is the dose.
100% agree. And I think there's like the myth, kind of a myth, the myth of the heroic dose. I mean, God bless Terrence McKenna, but if you don't do 5 grams in total darkness, you're just playing. And also, the one size fits all. And I totally, agree with you on disagreeing that, at a ceremony, everyone gets the same amount. And I really appreciate the tenderness that you're putting into your ceremonies as far as getting to know the client. Because a lot of folks don't need that big dose. A lot of people are more sensitive. I mean, we're, again, complicated creatures. And someone who's more... I was going to say, someone who's more sensitive, definitely, let's start them with a smaller dose. I'm a fan of low and slow, and then build up, build the foundation, then go deeper. But you need that, that foundation. Yeah. So go ahead. What were you going to say, Ti0?
Yeah, just to give an example of the range of doses. So like when I'm serving ayahuasca, I use a scale to get the exact number of milliliters or grams in the dose. And I've given doses as small as 10 ml, which I have taken, and it's been an extremely powerful experience because I'm in a very sensitive open state. And I've given doses as big as 200 ml, so 20 times higher, to a person who just had a standard experience, because they were so blocked, they were so close, that even 200 just gave them a good experience. It wasn't grand and big and strong or overdose. It was just like good. So like that is the range of experience of dose. And so, like, the standard dose when you go for a typical ceremony would be 1 glass, which would be like 30 ml, 50 ml, and it's like there's such a wide range of possible.
And then one thing I just want to add in, then we'll get to our next question. Again, this topic or this question, 2 hours we could easily do. But I think also that needs to be brought into this space, this discussion, is kind of that non-responder, or because I think sometimes it's framed as a big strong ego, but sometimes it can be dissociation, where someone's in a functional dissociative state where they're flooded with endogenous naturally occurring opioids. They're kind of shut down, and then you bring in a psychedelic and it just kind of amplifies their dissociation, which is an opioid. It's an opioid state. So bringing in medicine just can amplify that dissociative opioid state. So, but that's a protective layer. And so for me, this is also a place of caution. And sometimes there's the updose, more in like the psilocybin world of updosing people. But sometimes it's not the best idea to try to break through, because sometimes if there's dissociation, it's protecting something, and it's protecting it very strongly. And always if there's dissociation, there's trauma underneath that. And just caution for folks out there to, if someone's a non-responder, doesn't always necessarily mean give more. But I'm not busting you, Ti0, on how you did like that guy with the 200, but it's more in the updosing. Just, a little bit of caution in there.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so much about the experience of a facilitator in that. Like, it's not like I just give that much to someone just because they've not had anything. One of the most common things I've had in the middle of a ceremony. So like while I'm facilitating, someone has had their dose, and in the middle of the ceremony they'll come and tell me, nothing is happening. I need more. I say, okay, tell me what has happened so far. Nothing. And then I, just ask them a few more questions, and all of a sudden, it's like, hey, you're having a full-blown experience. It's just not what you think it should be, what you expect it to be. Like I said, visions are common, but it's not a guarantee that you have visions every single time. Sometimes it's your emotions are being amplified. Like you're having nothing because you need to feel frustrated. And that person comes to me in a very frustrated energy, and I can feel it. And I'm asking them questions like, no, nothing is happening. Just give me more. Like, no, I see your state. And this is what you need to face. You need to face your frustration of nothing happening, because this is your everyday life. You feel like nothing is happening. Life is going nowhere. That's
Yeah.
what ayahuasca is amplifying for you. What can you do different right now to break through in this experience? So we have to really expand our mind, even as facilitators, of what experience they should have, because you know I have heard that there are facilitators who want to please the participants, so they just give them more. They just give them a big dose because they want to look like they did everything in their power, or like they had a big experience. Like, no, what is the best thing for the participant?
Yeah. Love that.
So that, yeah.
Yeah. So listen, as far as, facilitators out there, listen to your clients. And I know that desire to, chase and create the big experience for someone. And a lot of times they don't need the big experience. They need to kind of just drop more into body and, feel these more subtle places. It's not always about go big or go home. That one's got to get dropped from the psychedelic community. Okay, we should go to our next question. Again, we could dive into lots to discuss. Okay, this one's interesting. Which is the best retreat? So I want to expand on that a little bit. Like, how, for someone who's interested in ayahuasca, what are some, you run a retreat center, but what would be some of the kind of, red flags, green flags? How do you vet the best retreat? And I'm assuming they're saying retreat for ayahuasca. So how do you vet ayahuasca retreat center? And great question.
It's a great question, because it's like, you have the standard thinking around this question, which is the best retreat. So let me put up some 10 evaluation points and let me judge which one is the best retreat. And I think the first thing is to add two words to that question. Which is the best retreat for you? Not which is, because the best retreat for me can be the worst retreat for you. Truly, it's so different. Each retreat is so different. Each experience is so different. And what you may need at a specific point of time may also change. So you may have gone to one center and had 5 retreats, so then they were all great. And the next one you need something very different. So it's which retreat is best for you at this time, for this specific experience. And it goes back to what you said several times. Listen to yourself. You really need to listen to your intuition, because your intuition will tell you this is the place to go. Sometimes your intuition will tell you this is the place to go, not because you'll have the best experience, but you may have a challenging experience there. But that is what you need. The retreat will be best for you to give you what you need, not what you want. Let's again reinforce that. It's to get what you need for your highest healing, for your highest transformation, for your highest evolution and expansion. So if that is the intention, of course, then there are some real parameters to investigate. It's like, is the retreat facilitator experienced? What is the experience? What is their background? You need to be asking these questions, and they're important questions. And how they respond will also inform you. And again, you need to feel into the response. Some people may say all the right things because that's what people do. But if they say the right things and you still don't feel like it's right, keep looking. Don't go for the easiest or most convenient. Convenience is not the priority when you're choosing an ayahuasca retreat. Well, I have an ayahuasca retreat happening in my neighborhood, so I should just go for that because it's so easy to do it. And why should I travel all the way to South America in the jungle? That's not convenient at all. I should just do what is most. This is a very powerful experience and substance, and it needs to be handled with caution and with care. And convenience is not at all one of the parameters you should be using to judge whether you should go for it or not. And I would say legality matters because a lot of ayahuasca is being facilitated illegally. And the reason I say legality matters is that if you do not feel safe, that also has to be experienced. Because like I said, it's an amplifier. If you're not feeling safe, that feeling will also get amplified. And I've heard of some really terrible experiences just because someone was doing it in a basement in New York. And then constantly in the back of their head about the police are going to bust them, the FBI is going to bust them, and that became their whole experience. Like it just consumed them because that's what ayahuasca does. So if you do not feel safe in the setting with the person, that's just not the right place. You need to feel that trust, you need to feel safe, you just need to feel like you're taking care of your health, and that is the criteria I would emphasize the most.
Mhm.
Apart from knowing that the facilitator has experience, that they can actually hold you through something tough, that they are trauma informed, and like maybe something will come up. But if you have something to add, please.
Nothing to really add, just augment. Yeah. But again, what you're saying, what I'm saying, listen, listen,
Mhm.
listen to hear that
Yeah.
intuition. And then also that the word safe is a huge one. Does this
Mhm.
does this person feel safe? How does this, when I talk to this person, how does that feel in my body? Does it feel like schmarmy? Does it feel like there's something off? Listen to that. And
Mhm.
the photos, or anything that's about the web or the retreat center, how does it feel seeing those photos? I know they're using the best possible photos, but also even within that, just listen. How's it feel in body? How's it feel in body? If there's any
Yeah.
like listen to the or any question.
Yeah.
And
And
go ahead.
if
Go
you
ahead.
can talk to the facilitators, that's also good. Like having an actual conversation does help because like that tells a lot. And one point that I want to add is that because like especially in the illegal scene, right? Like ayahuasca is being transported illegally, and because of that, it's very tough to transport it. And because of that, usually then they're diluting it and sometimes also mixing it with other things. So you can also ask the question of what are the ingredients of this ayahuasca, where has it been prepared, and sometimes like because it's illegal and you're just getting small quantities, it's diluted so much that you're barely having any experience. So one of the benefits of traveling to South America is that it's legal here, it's prepared in the traditional setting, and there's no shortage of it. So, like if someone needs a 200 ml dose, they get that. If someone needs a 20 ml dose, whatever dose is needed, you get that. Versus, well, we only have 1 liter of ayahuasca and you have to split it into 50 people. If you have an experience, good for you. If you don't, sorry. Like, all of that also matters.
Mm-hmm. No, totally agree with that. Know your dose as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have time for probably one more question. We're going a little bit longer. So the question is, why is integration more important than the ceremony itself? Big question. I mean, again, this could be a day. So, but tee that off to you, hand that off to you, Tio. Why is integration more
Yeah.
important than the ceremony itself?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important questions that people need to ask and know about. Is that so? Let's begin with this. Ayahuasca. It's a very weird experience for people who have never had psychedelics, especially, or even if you've had psychedelics, sometimes you can get into areas which are just not part of the common reality experience. So, it's not like you're suddenly just having another experience which is familiar. It's so unfamiliar sometimes, it's so different sometimes. And the reason I say that is that interpreting the ayahuasca experience is not something that is anyone can do. It's like you have normal experiences which are part of your normal reality. They're easy to interpret, but when you have something that's completely in the unknown, it can be very challenging to interpret the experience. I think that's one of the big things about integration is that actually understanding what happened. That's one of the big challenges I've seen, is that a lot of people come out of the experience and they think that they've seen a movie which just did not make any sense at all. And as you work with someone who lives in this world of ayahuasca and has a lot of experience with it, you start breaking down that experience, and all of a sudden it's like there's just a treasure trove of insights and breakthroughs waiting to happen. So that is what I would call the integration, is interpreting the experience and how do I make this experience practical? How do I apply it in my daily life? This was actually, one of the apart, like, of course, because I was training as a facilitator, holding the ceremony and guiding people in the ceremony and dosing and all of that was important. But one of the big parts of my training was the integration, because that's where so many more breakthroughs would happen. Or even if a breakthrough happened during the ceremony, it would go like 10 times deeper while talking about it with someone who knows how to interpret it and how to make it practical and applicable for you. So that's where I would lay the foundation of integration. Why integration matters is because it's not just you had a very typical insight and now I can apply it in my life. Sometimes you may have it, you may have experiences which don't even make any sense because you just don't understand what that reality is. And I'll try and think of some actual examples to maybe make it more tangible for people. But I would also love to hear your thoughts on it.
I 100% agree that integration is, I don't know if it's equal, all these, preparation is important, the session's important, the integration's important. But there needs to be more emphasis on the integration process. So you get for me, I always frame it as you get the download, now you got to install it. And also the other thing I would add to this is, sometimes the fastest way to healing or transformation is to slow down. And again, bringing back in the listening theme, but, as you're, the part of the integration process, I sound like a broken record on this, but listen to what you're hearing, listen to what you're feeling, listen to body, let mind go a little bit more in the background, but just really feel, there's listening into this other dimension of body, into spirit, into intuition. And the best way to hear that place of body, intuition, heart is slowing down. And the other thing I want to add to this, and this I think is, whether it's ayahuasca or any psychedelic, where there's this kind of chasing the experience, where folks were, I'm going to Costa Rica and doing ibogaine, and then next week I'm going to go to Mexico and do mushrooms with Huichol tribe and peyote also, and then and there can be this thing, within the spiritual community, there's spiritual bypassing, where you're just constantly, in heaven and not dealing with, the foundation of your life. And then within the psychedelic community, there can be, I call it psychedelic bypassing, where you're just chasing the experience and you're just going for the next experience and the bigger experience. And I've done this, now I got to try this. Now I got to try this. Now I'm going to do this. But you haven't done, processed the thing you did, last year, where you had that huge breakthrough that really said, you got to look at this, this, and this. And now you're just keep chasing this high or chasing these experiences. So it's just, a cautionary tale to just slow down, because there can be so much information from a single, whether, it's an ayahuasca ceremony or psilocybin, whatever it is. There can be a ton of information in there. I know for me, from some of my personal experiences, it's taken years to finally understand, oh, that's what they're talking about. I had one of those, recently with ibogaine that I did like 13 years ago, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what just be means. Okay, finally get it. So slow down, folks.
I think that's very important, and there's this whole idea of the magic pill. I feel like that is one of the big things to address. Like you said, chasing the experience, especially for someone like me who had this radical transformation. It can feel like I can have it every single time, or I can have it many times. So if I had it once, I just need to drink until my life is fixed and I'm perfect. Like I become the perfect being and I have transcended and ascended everything, and that's the end of it. And I have to just drink more ayahuasca, and that's going to stop. Next time, if I do not get this time, next time it's going to happen. That mindset is so common, especially for people who had one big transformational experience, or they heard of someone who had. A lot of the transformation happen in the everyday life. It's like you have to do the work. There is no shortcut, there is no magic pill. If you're meant to have a big leap, if you're meant to have a very deep transformational experience, you cannot control it or manufacture it or demand it. It's going to happen if it's going to happen. You can. It's not like playing the lottery. If you just keep playing, sometime or the other it will happen. Even the lottery doesn't work that way, you know.
Right.
And you, like sometimes we are so desperate for our life to change, so we will just put all our hope into this one thing that will save me. And I've seen people, who will invest all the money that they have to go for a retreat and hoping that it's going to save their life and change their life and all of that. And it may happen, but it's like playing the lottery. It's like 1 in a trillion chance that may happen. I want to put everything to chance. I also want to take from the experience what you can use your power to transform your own life. So don't just put all eggs in one basket and hope for some magic to happen. That can happen. Not saying that cannot happen, but there's so much else that is happening that you can use to actually change your life if you're ready to do the work in the everyday. And that whether you're doing ayahuasca, whether you're doing psilocybin, whether you're doing other psychedelics, whether you're doing just spiritual work, right? Like there is no bypassing the everyday work. It just doesn't exist. Even after the grand transformation, there's everyday work. Like I had this radical transformation where I quit the substances. I did not become a perfect person. It's not like I do not have temptations to go back. Like all of that is the continued work. Like, will I stay this transformed person, or will I just regress back to who I was?
Yes. I think my, closing comment here, one of probably many, as I say, I'm closing here. But I mean, for me, the spiritual realms, the spiritual transformation is an awesome experience to have. But at the end of the day, every day, we're in these physical bodies, we're monkeys with big brains, but we have connections to these spiritual realms. But, it's kind of the old school, be here now, but be here now in this physical body, this physical world with relationships and friends and community. And how are you showing up in the world? That's the most important thing, is how am I showing up in the world? And then doing everything possible to just, keep clearing the vessel, but understanding that, every day you're in this physical body. This is what matters. And then with that, I want to kind of wrap up. We've gone a little over, but that's awesome. And again, each one of these questions could have been their own whole series of webinars and dialogue. So for folks still hanging in, if you haven't scanned that QR code, go to Webdelics, sign up for our newsletter. It goes out every week. And then a huge thank you to Ti0. And then Ti0, if you want to let people know how they can reach out to you, your website, email address, any of that info that you want to share with the audience out there.
Yeah, so I call my work the Infinite Zero experience. That's why Ti0 is spelled the way it is, because it's the Infinite Zero. And obviously I'm working with ayahuasca. If someone is interested in an ayahuasca retreat or experience, you can reach out to me. The website is theinfinitezero.com. Apart from that, I also do talk about this stuff on my own YouTube channel. So you can search for the Infinite Zero experience on YouTube, and have a newsletter on LinkedIn. So you can search for my name on LinkedIn and you'll also find my newsletter. So I welcome you connecting there. If you have more questions, please do send them to me offline. I'm happy to answer them offline too. You can also drop them on the replay that we publish on YouTube. So I'll go check the comments there also and respond to it. So
awesome. I appreciate your accessibility there. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, Steve Elfrink, you can find me at steve@omterra, omterra.org. That's my private practice is Omterra. And happy also to answer any questions for folks out there. So you have two guys putting themselves out there to support, help in any way possible. I think a lot of us who are in this work, we're just mainly on a mission to help folks and in service. And then thank you for everyone for joining us today. If you've popped in, popped out, people watching this down the line when it's recorded, thank you for listening to it. And thank you for our background support, Hamish out there, popping these questions in, and everyone at Webdelics who pulled together to make this happen. A huge thank you to all of you. And once again, Ti0, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. I appreciate your wisdom, sharing, and what you're doing to help folks out there. And with that said, we'll say goodbye. Okay, take care, everyone. Stay safe out there.